She trained her dog to destroy my drone, my neighbor yelled across the fence the night the summons showed up, and now she owes me for it. That is how he framed it. What I actually did, according to him, was turn my backyard into a Malamute fight club. What really happened? He terrorized my rescue, Maple, for months with a buzzing toy. Maple finally snapped and bit plastic, and he tried to make me pay. Here is the part I did not expect to confess. I made him stop. I made it stick. And the ending? Let's just say a camera caught something he really did not want anyone to see, and I was not the one in court begging for leniency by the time it was over. Me, female, 31 years old. Maple, a 65-pound Shepherd Malamute mix with a cinnamon coat and eyes like Riverstone, and our starter townhouse on a cul-de-sac that smells like fresh-cut grass and gasoline every Saturday morning. I am a surgical nurse. Mornings are coffee, scrubs, a smear of peanut butter on toast, and a quick game of find the squeaky in the backyard before I drive to the hospital. 6 or 7 months before court, our new neighbor rolled in. A shiny pickup, a girlfriend who wore gym clothes like a uniform, and a drone he bragged about like it was a second child. He flew like a menace, over rooftops, angling into windows, trying to race cars down Elm Street. The sound, an angry kettle of wasps would creep under the sliding door and make Maple hug the baseboards. He learned our schedule. The second I slid the door open, he would pop the drone over our fence, dip, and hover a few inches above Maple's head. The first time I asked him to stop, he grinned like a teenager caught with fireworks. "It is airspace," he said, resting a beer can on our shared fence in that lazy Florida heat. "Can't stop me." The next Saturday, the thing dive-bombed again. Maple flattened to the crabgrass, lip trembling, then bolted to the far corner by the hibiscus I kept killing and resurrecting. I marched to the front yard, heart running a sprint. He was barefoot in his driveway, remote in hand. "Please stay out of my yard. You are scaring my dog." "Then train your dog," he said, "or get rid of it." My neighbor Nora, 50 going on steel, stuck her head over her porch rail and called, "Hey, drone boy, go to a field." He grinned wider. Maple refused to pee that evening. After midnight, I lay awake listening to the cricket metronome and the occasional mosquito whine against the screen, and I told myself that tomorrow I would be firmer. I was. He laughed. I called the police. 2 officers came, smelled the neighbor's grill, told him to be respectful, and left. The drone popped up that afternoon anyway, like a mechanical bird with no fear. In the kitchen, my coffee went sour in my mouth. I could not live like this. Neither could Maple. If you have never watched a dog decide they are done being afraid, it is terrifying and holy. Late December, cold for Florida, I opened the slider to the smell of wet soil and neighborly charcoal. The drone rose like a fat horsefly and knifed down. Maple watched it. 1 beat, 2, then he leapt, caught it out of the air like a frisbee, and exploded it. Plastic cracked, propellers pinged into the fence like corn kernels. Maple spat the carcass onto the grass and looked at me, stunned but proud, tail wagging in question. For a 5 count, there was silence, the calm that comes after a plate shatters in a restaurant when every head turns. Then my neighbor was pounding on my door, face red, chest bare and shiny with sweat. "You owe me $900, he said, "and trespass. That thing sat on your lawn for hours before you gave it back. Add $300. The only answer I had in that moment was to hold Maple's collar and close the door slowly like we were in a movie. Later that week, the summons hit my mailbox hard enough to bend. Small claims court. His complaint claimed I had weaponized my dog. He included a printout of a drone forum to look fancy. I am not proud of this next part, but fear does strange things. I took Maple to the vet even though his mouth looked fine, because in my head I saw cracked premolars and infections. We did an x-ray, sedation, a full dental exam, anti-anxiety meds, wet food because the vet said it would be gentle, a secondary checkup. I paid every bill. Back home, Maple slept like a small bear. I sat at the kitchen table, stared at the receipts and the summons, and ate a microwaved lasagna at midnight while the refrigerator hummed like a stubborn friend. My mother called from Palm Bay. "Save everything," she said, with that escalator-rising voice. "And honey, do not talk to him. Paper only." Court felt like a waiting room with better lighting. My neighbor arrived in a button-down with pearl snaps, hair shellacked into obedience. He had a folder stuffed with printed photos of Maple. I had a binder, tabs, receipts, timestamps, and Nora on my right wearing her church pearls and a smirk she had been saving for someone special. On my left, Mr. Delgado from the corner lot, retired Air Force, calm as a stone. He had noticed the drone too, he told me, and brought a notepad full of dates and times like it was a hobby. The judge asked my neighbor to explain. He gave an Oscar speech about property rights, airspace, and aggressive animals. When he got to the part where I had allegedly trained Maple to attack, the judge squinted. "Sir, are you claiming this woman conducted, bite drills with a drone?" My neighbor deflated. I kept my voice cool when it was my turn. I had photos of our backyard showing that you could not accidentally be 3 feet over Maple's head from his driveway without deliberately flying over the fence. I had a 3-minute video, thank you Nora, of him dipping the drone down at Maple while laughing. I slid each page across the wood like dealing cards. The judge's lips twitched at the vet bills. "You sedated the dog?" "Yes, Your Honor. I wanted to be sure he was not hurt." He tried a different angle. "She is manipulating. These are luxury services. Teeth cleaning is optional." "I am a nurse," I said, calmer than I felt. "Pain can hide, and fear is trauma." Mr. Delgado raised a hand. "Your Honor, if it helps, he was out of visual line of sight half the time and flying near the elementary school. I wrote down altitudes best I could judge." The judge asked my neighbor if his drone was registered. He inhaled, exhaled, looked at the floor. The judge blanked. "You sued her for money without following basic regulations. Bold." The decision took less than 5 minutes. His claim was denied. He owed me for Maple's medical costs and court fees, just under $2,000. When the gavel tapped, the courtroom felt like the inside of a vaccine tent after the last dose. Relief, lightness. I exhaled until my ribs hurt. We walked out to the smell of old paper and the faint spice ghost of somebody's lunch. My neighbor brushed my shoulder, accidentally, as he stormed past. Nora leaned in and whispered, "Buy yourself a camera with this windfall. 2, actually." "Trust me," I said. I already did. Punchline number 1 dropped out of me like a dare. Play stupid games, pay vet bills. I thought winning would be the ending. It was the midpoint. In January, Maple refused to go out one morning. She stood at the slider, nose tilted, muscles tight. I stepped onto the damp concrete. Something sour-sweet hung in the air, like cough syrup and pennies. A glint near the fence post caught my eye. Raw ground beef balled like a meatloaf and scattered under the bougainvillea. Maple sat. Good girl. I grabbed a bag, double-gloved, and slid the balled meat inside. There were blue flecks. I did not have to be a nurse to know what that meant. 911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was clean and almost kind. I said the words like reading from a chart. Possible poison, possible attempted harm, neighbor conflict, ongoing harassment. She told me to keep Maple inside, do not touch the dog's mouth, and an officer would come. Also, she added, voice softening, "I know this is scary, but it is common in neighbor disputes. Lock your gates, set a camera on them." My trail cams had been a joke until they were not. I pulled the card. On the screen, at 3 in the morning, a man's arm in a hoodie cleared the fence. A ball of meat lobbed, landed, rolled. The wrist had a bracelet, leather, braided. I had seen it every time my neighbor lifted a beer, waved that remote, wagged his forefinger like a metronome. When the police arrived, they treated the bag like a bomb. Gloves, photos, measurements. They nodded solemnly at Maple through the glass. "We will take this for testing." One officer asked if the cameras caught a face. "No," I said, "just a hand, but look at the bracelet." He did. His mouth tightened. Nora brought over coffee in a travel mug and stood shoulder to shoulder with me on the lanai. He is the idiot who shows up at Halloween as a serial killer and then thinks the police cannot imagine him as one. I laughed once, short, mean. Is revenge ever the right choice? I heard my own voice and hated the tremor in it. Justice, Nora said, squeezing my shoulder. We are going for justice. I kept Maple inside except for supervised breaks. We practiced Leave It with carrot coins. I put a simple brass padlock on the side gate and pointed one camera at chest height like a doorman. I tried to go about my life, packed a turkey sandwich with mustard and pickle chips for my shift, charted post-op pain scores, complimented a grandmother's glittery nail polish. But I was living in a low hum. Every time the refrigerator cycled, I flinched. Every time the sprinklers kicked on, my heart dragged across gravel. His girlfriend, Allie, caught me at the mailbox one afternoon, face blotchy, ponytail listing.
He is just mad about the money, she said quietly. He has had a lot of stress. I am sorry for any stress, I said, but someone threw poison into my yard. She swallowed. Her eyes swung back toward their garage. He would never hurt a dog. The way she said it sounded like a wish. Is silence from bystanders another form of bullying? I asked, and the look she gave me told me she understood exactly what I meant. 2 days later, I spotted the drone again, new model, same sound, lifting behind his fence but not crossing it. It hovered a while, like a fly indecisive about a plate. Then it zipped straight up and out. I took photos of the serial number sticker when it later crashed in his driveway, and he left it unattended like a toy. Random, sure, but patterns tell stories. I filed a report with Animal Control and handed over copies of the video. They told me to log everything: times, smells, any items tossed. This is not the first time, the officer said matter-of-factly, and it won't be the last we see of this guy. That night, Nora texted, "You okay?" I wrote back, "Yes." Then I stared at the blue bubble for a long time. I poured myself orange juice, and it tasted like metal. Here is the twist I promised. The man who thought he could terrify a dog for entertainment was supposed to be careful for a living. He was a pediatric dentist. I learned that because the officers ran his name when the test came back on the meat, rat poison confirmed, in a concentration that would have killed Maple within hours. The detective who called me had a voice like gravel. "We need a formal statement for the prosecutor," he said, "and, Miss Daniels, do not engage." The girlfriend moved out the next week. You could tell by the way the driveway looked emptier than usual, and the bright yoga mat went missing from the garage. I saw her put one box labeled kitchen into the back seat, and then, on second thought, tuck a framed photo into her tote. She looked over at me once. We did not wave. I did not know what an administrative hearing felt like until a month later when a friend sent me a link. State Dentistry Board agenda. A complaint number. I clicked, read phrases like conduct unbecoming and pending investigation. My hands shook over the keyboard. I did not want to be gleeful at someone's life falling apart, but I did want to be safe. Maple pressed her head into my knee while I scrolled. A week after that, a certified letter arrived from his attorney, offering to settle all outstanding matters in exchange for my non-cooperation with unrelated agencies. I read it twice. Then I took it to Mr. Delgado. He whistled. "He wants you to ignore the FAA and Animal Control? Ma'am, that is pressure." He sipped his coffee. "Would you confront them or act in secret?" he asked me, almost playfully, eyebrows up. "Both," I said. "I will be very loud where it matters and very quiet where it counts." Punchline number 2 came out meaner than the first. He didn't just fly a drone, he poked a bear. When he stopped paying in full, just dribbled 20 here, 50 there toward the judgment, I listened to advice. File a lien on his truck, one neighbor suggested. Sell the debt to collections, another said. I learned about assignments of rights, about how a collector will pay you a chunk, 70 or 80%, and then take over the chase.
I did not have the appetite to knock on his door. I had patients to help, and a dog to walk, and a nervous system to calm. So I sold the debt. The agency representative wore a suit with a coffee stain and explained wage garnishment like he was reading a bedtime story. The next day, my neighbor came home and saw the notice on his door. He ripped it down, threw it into the yard, looked around like someone would clap, and then stomped inside. I was watering basil on my windowsill. For the first time in months, his anger landed and slid off me like rain on a poncho. Allie texted me from an unknown number. "Please do not respond," the first line said. "I just wanted you to know I never threw anything." The second line was a pin drop, a screenshot of him bragging in a group chat about teaching the mutt a lesson. The bracelet was in the photo, same braided leather, same tiny metal anchor clasp glinting in bar light. My stomach dropped. I forwarded it to the detective. That night, I walked Maple to the corner. The air smelled like jasmine and distant fried chicken. Nora leaned over her portrayal. "I still say you should leave a John Wick DVD on his doorstep," she said, deadpan. I grinned. "Just the case," I said. "Empty. More poetic." And then, because I am still me, even in a story like this, I asked the third question out loud as we watched his blinds twitch. "Do you think revenge gives closure?" Nora's answer was honest. "Closure is a unicorn. We settle for documentation." The last scene unfolded in 4 phone calls. The first was animal control. They were recommending charges. The second was the detective. The state attorney was filing felony animal poison charges with a possible plea deal. The third was the FAA case officer, polite as a librarian. He had reviewed videos and witness statements and wanted to confirm dates. The fourth was the dentistry board. The hearing date was set. On the morning of the hearing, the world was ordinary. Maple snored with her paws twitching. I made oatmeal and cut up strawberries. Somewhere, sprinklers ticked against a fence. I opened my laptop and joined a webcast that looked like every meeting you have ever sat through. Thumbnails of stiff people pretending not to look at themselves. When his name was called, he looked smaller than the fence made him seem. His lawyer's tie was too wide. They used words like misunderstanding and context. The board used words like endangerment and unprofessional conduct. Halfway through, his internet lagged and froze his expression into a grimace. I did not speak. My statement had already been given. Nora teared up when she saw my hands shaking, even though nothing was happening to me in that moment except remembering. When the board chair finished, Maple let out a little sigh, the sound she makes when she finally understands a command. The board voted to suspend his license pending the outcome of the criminal case, with a review in a year. Later, the FAA letter would use the word violations, plural. He moved 2 months after that. 1 U-Haul, 2 friends who looked like they had been promised beer and now regretted it. The bracelet was gone from his wrist. Allie came by once more, picked up the last 2 boxes, and left her key in my mailbox with a note that said, simply, "I am sorry I was quiet for so long." I put the note in a drawer with the vet bills. Maple lay in the sun like a seal and thumped her tail against the cool tile. Was I tempted to film a slow, smug pan of my quiet backyard for social media? Yes. Did I? No. My last line to him, sent certified mail, so I would never have to say it to his face. Any further contact should go through my attorney. Then I went inside, cut a ripe mango, sticky sweet on my fingers, and finally ate in peace. "Protect your peace," I told Maple. She sneezed like she agreed. The last question sits with me still, because the internet loves a clean ending, and real life seldom hands you one. Would you warn others about a betrayer? Because I did. I told the board, the police, the FAA, and my neighborhood Facebook group. And if you think that is petty, you are lucky enough to have never stood on cold concrete at dawn, smelling poison in your garden, praying your dog does not eat the wrong thing. He thought he needed to win. I learned all I needed was to be believed. And that is when I realized Maple never needed me to be a hero. She needed me to be consistent.